What's going on, YouTube? Welcome to episode 31 of the U.S.S. Enterprise D tutorial. I'm Zero Elite, and I just want to thank you very much for tuning in today's episode. And if you haven't, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, helping me and supporting the channel. I can't thank you enough for that. Today, we're going to be getting just a little bit more work done on the saucer section, but really the majority of our episode is going to focus on going back to the engines and closing in the front of them and getting a little bit of detailing done on the sides. That's going to be a little bit how it's going to be going forward at this point. We're going to be hopping back and forth between the engines, the saucer section, and then eventually the deflector dish. Got about a 26-minute episode today, so let's just jump right into it. And I'm not going to lie, one of the reasons why you're going to see me jumping back and forth, because I decided to take like a short hiatus, like as far as building out the saucer section, because there are some areas on here that, well, it's not like super complicated. It took me a little bit to figure it out. Anyway, at this point, we built up one more straight up down the middle, and I'm just doing my x-axis and on the left, right, top, and bottom out to the first row of the inner circle that we've added in so far. Eventually, we are going to come back. We're going to stretch that out, going all the way around as far as the outside of these rings as well. But for today, let's just do that, and then we're going to get rid of the old white concrete directly underneath. All right. So far, we are in pretty good shape. One thing I do want to talk about before we get too heavy into anything else, I've been having a considerable amount of people ask me what my next build's going to be, and I've been having a few people here and there ask me for Voyager. So if that's the ship you want to see me do, be sure to drop a comment below in the comment section. Let me know what the ship is that you want to see me build next. But at this point, I've had so many people asking for Voyager, it would have to take a lot of requests at this point for it to be something else other than Voyager, put it that way. So while I'm not committing to anything at this point, I want to focus on building the Enterprise D for right now. But with that being said, we are going to come back, well, not come back, but that being said, when we get towards the end of this build, we are going to talk about what the next ship's going to be, and it could very well end up being Voyager. Now, one thing I do want to talk about here is you can see me, I was working on this. I was zooming, I was looking at the top of the ship out of this outer ring right here, and these two angles right here, and you can spot them on every four corners. I'm going to be fixing that on all four sides. So right here in the middle, be fixing that, getting rid of those two sides right there. We'll be filling in gaps with half slabs, because I'm just not very fond with how they came out. Because at this point, this ring right here that we stopped on, this wasn't done from the pixel circle generator. This was just kind of the extra layering that was left over from where we started from, which was our initial ring. Now, you don't see me do that on the back sides, but that's something you want to do on the back sides as well. And the back side of the saucer looks exactly identical to the front side. And if you're not necessarily worried about it, you don't have to make that change. But me, I'm just, little things like that stick out to me. Now, what we're going to be adding right now, I'd say add this in because just to keep yourselves exactly where I'm at, we're going to do a ring of the black concrete, or actually the dark gray concrete, going all the way around this first lip here. You don't want to do it on the first inner lip that we have added that's directly behind it. But when I was doing this on this row right here that's connected to the outer part of the saucer, initially I was thinking that this was going to end up being the phaser banks. But long story short, I ended up changing my mind on that and deciding that I actually want to come back and rebuild them. So that's going to be, I think the last time that we come back to the pixel circle generator. I think there's going to be 2 more rings that we build out of the pixel circle generator, which is actually kind of crazy because at that point, I think I'll have used the pixel circle generator more times during the course of this build than I have for any single build that I've done so far. But that goes to testament to the many levels of the layering that's required during the course of this build for the Enterprise D. There was just no way around it. It's actually funny too, because I was looking at the ship the other day, and I was looking at it from the front, and I just kind of noticed that I'm like, you know, the shape of the saucer on the Enterprise D surprisingly resembles the Enterprise E in a lot of ways. Maybe it's not as the Enterprise E dish isn't as thick as the Enterprise D, but if you look at it from a top-down view, that oval shape really resembles the Enterprise E in a lot of ways. So kind of what I'm getting at, that, you know, it's inevitably going to happen that I will build the Enterprise E, but I would like to do that when I have a lot of people asking for it and I feel that there's a demand to build that ship. But it will happen at some point. But when I do, the good news is that I'll have way more experience at that point of building ships in this fashion. So that'll be pretty cool. So it won't be as hard to build the Enterprise E when we build it out, because at this point, I think the hardest part of that build would have been the saucer section. And I figured out a couple of things during the course of this build. And that's just one of the things that goes with it. When you're building these things out for the first time, you're never quite sure how it's going to go. But once you do get it down, it kind of just sticks with you. Or at least it does for me anyway. That's one of the reasons why when we built the Disco Era Enterprise, the majority of the patterns that we used for that ship were patterns that I had gotten from the 2009 Enterprise, and then also the 2016 Star Trek Beyond Enterprise. Even though they weren't exactly the same shapes, a lot of that stuff I was able to translate over to it. And we'll be able to do the same thing with the Enterprise E from the Enterprise D, so that'll be pretty cool. Even Voyager, I hadn't even thought about that. Voyager, even though it's not nearly as big as the Enterprise D, the shape of the saucer, it's not a perfect oval. Actually, I think it is now that I think about it. But the shape top and bottom of the Voyager is actually a little bit different from the Enterprise D, but they're still similar enough that I'll be able to use that layering process that we've taken or done during the course of this build and apply that to Voyager when that comes up, which at this point is more than likely going to be what the next build is, because I definitely want to build, you know, the stuff that people are into on the channel, and also things that I think would be a lot of fun to do. And I've been talking about it for a while, because I remember, like, right before I did the Cerritos, I was talking about doing Voyager, because I had a few people at that point that were asking for it. And I was still kind of trying to figure out what my next build was going to be. And, you know, I did the Cerritos, now the Enterprise D, but it really looks like that's going to be next. Anyway, I do want to get back in a little bit what I got going on here, because you're probably going to notice these last couple of rows here I didn't fill in the black, because that's exactly how it is on the Enterprise D. And then also this area here is going to be reserved for the shuttle bay. So you have your main back strip, and then 1, 2, 3. Same thing on this side. Main back strip going this way, and then 1, 2, 3. Everything else, you're going to fill that in going all the way around. Pretty simple. Not too complicated, which is how I'm trying to keep this whole build, even though it feels like it's gotten super complicated as we've been going. But I gotta be honest, I think it's paying off. Enterprise D is looking pretty good so far. Still have a ton of work to do, though. Ton of work. I mean, we haven't even gotten into the interior yet, and we're already on episode 31. And we're not even done with the outside. We've got a considerable amount of work left to do on the outside, just filling it all in, and then that's not even counting doing all the detailing. I haven't even gotten to the detailing on my build yet, where I'm currently at, because I'm focusing on the interior, and then I'll come back and I'll do the outside. So we're going to be hopping over, transitioning to the next part of the build. You can see that the lip of our engines, I'm going to be adding 1 row of white quartz to the lip. Bring that out by 2 to stretch that out just a little bit. Then we're going to hop over to the left side edge and do the same thing. As you can see, that very front is pattern of 1 instead of 2 like the other row, unlike the other rows. So we're going to be stretching that out to make that even. Alright, so far so good. Now we're going to go in, 1 with the cut. This really isn't that complicated. We're going to go up to the next cut line. You can kind of start to anticipate how this is going to go. You can see I'm just following the cut line. It dictated at that point to go down, and now on this side it dictates it to go up. You can start to get an idea on why I make a lot of decisions that I make when I'm making these ships, and hopefully these same traits will stick with you. And as we go and build these more and more of these ships, you'll start to hopefully build in this way as well. And you don't necessarily have to. This is just the way that I do it. And I personally like doing it this way. I think the ships look cleaner, and you would be surprised. This can save you a lot of the times from not only making a mistake, but like we're doing right now, it's the pattern itself is dictating a lot of what I'm doing right now. I'm really not deciding like, okay, like I'm going to go down. No, I'm following the cut line because the way that we've built this out so far, this is by design, and of course the initial shape, I intended it to come out this way, that it would look like the front of the engine, but I'm not sure exactly what I'm trying to say with that. But I think the main point is that I got basically lucky enough that with the initial shape of our engine, the initial ring that we made, and then the 2x2 pattern, we're pretty lucky to the point that that looks pretty close to how the engines actually do look. And that's why I say that it's so imperative to spend the extra time and work out those initial shapes like we did with the engines, like we did with the saucer, the neck, and the lower hull, because when you start to follow those patterns like we've been doing over the course of the last couple of minutes and the last several episodes, if not all of them, it really does pay off. And this is why I keep stressing so many times that when you're building the when you're building your ships, when I'm building mine, this is why it looks like, you know, I'm going off of a blueprint, but I'm really not. I'm actually just going off of what the actual outline cut is. And that looks pretty solid. Gone past the first 11 minutes. We still have about 15 minutes left in today's episode. We're going to be spending that getting some detail done. One of the things we'll be doing in just a moment here is, so we've done the blue going along here. Actually, on both sides, we're going to be doing that, but we're actually going to do a line separating where this blue line is going to start from the front. Then also when we're going to add in the yellow on the engines and kind of separating the front piece from the back piece. This is going to be definitely important because this is going to dictate where your blue line is going to start. Pretty much directly behind that gray line. So the third block back on the very middle two. But what we're also going to do is we're going one back off of this first initial line here that we technically started with before we built any of this out. We're just going to be building that going all the way around. We're going to be swapping that out for the dark gray. Like I said, this will eventually become the yellow strip, and then I'll stretch it out by 2, in fact. Alright, now let's fill it in. Got a couple more rows to do on the left side engine, then we're going to pop over to the right and repeat the same process again. I just double checked where my beginner line is going to be. One back right here. We're going to do the same thing. We're just going to delete everything off this row, going all the way around. See, as I'm deleting, you can see some of the old engine that we had before. Of course, you're not going to have that on your build, but on mine, there's not really necessarily a reason to go back and delete it. Because since we've closed it in, we'll never see it again. Bottom side of the engine from the part that I missed last time we were working on this. I'm actually going to hop back over, double check my work. So there we go. You know what, I actually had somebody comment saying that I missed this, and I swore that I didn't. So, I forget who that was in the comment section, but you were actually right. I missed that one little lip down there, so keen eye on catching that. But, even if you make mistakes, that's okay. You know, go back, double check your work like we did there, and you will catch it, you know, but that just goes to show, even if you're paying attention, you could still easily make mistakes. But as long as you go back and you double check your work, make sure what you're doing is right, you'll catch those mistakes 9 times out of 10. So alright, we're on point now. So now this middle strip right here, everything behind that gray strip on these middle 2 rows right here, we're going to be swapping that out to blue. I did that kind of fast with editing. So I'm going to rewind it just a little bit so we can pan back over to that. So now, at this point, if you need to pause the episode to catch up with me, as you can see from the gray strip that we added directly behind that, just these middle 2 rows right here, we're going to be bringing that all the way back, placing these 2 middle rows from the white concrete to the blue. We're doing that on the left side and right side of the left engine. And then we're going to go over to the right engine and repeat that same process again. And once you've caught up, then you can feel free to start the episode up again. Now, we're going to go in and fill in the back end of the engine and actually close it in. Now we're still going to go with a cut line, but we're going to do slightly different pattern than what we did with the front, because the back side is a little bit more stubby compared to the front. The front of the engine is a lot more elongated, as opposed to the back side of the engine, like I just said, is way more stubby. So we're going to really be trying to replicate that while working with the current shape that we have. So the easiest way to do that is to go in a pattern of 1. because anything at this point more than that, then every time you add a layer to that, like if you're doing 2 or 3, stretching it out by doing that. And by bringing it down to 1, you're increasing the vertical cut line, basically, or the incline of the vertical cut line. Now you can see I'm hopping over to the right side engine and repeating the same process again, because I don't want to get too far ahead of myself on the left and right, because I'm not exactly sure, well, put it this way, I'm not certain what steps I'm going to be doing, so that's why I'm doing it gradually. I'm doing a little bit on one side, and I'm hopping over and doing the same thing on the other side, so this way I don't get too far ahead of myself, so that I can stop myself from making any possible mistakes. Now once we close this in, we're going to be filling in the middle 2 rows with blue as well, but we need to wait until we actually get that back end built up. Now you can see going with the pattern of 1, it's already dictating it, you know, when the next close is going to be. Right here in the sides already closing up a little bit, as we're just going with the cut. We're going to hop back over to the right side and do the same thing. Wish when I was building my 2009 Enterprise, and even Enterprise from Enterprise A from Star Trek Beyond, I wish I had all these steps down packed, because it would have made those builds a heck of a lot easier. Even the Vengeance, when I did that, I really didn't start adopting all of these things that you see me doing now until until I got to like the tail end of the Enterprise A, and then maybe even into the Discovery. But out of those, you could really see that method in play on the Kelvin, because that was full on through and through. I think that was maybe the first ship that all the steps that you see me following in these episodes, the Kelvin was the first one that I applied all those traits to, steps. And it really does work, and I think I've proved it with the Enterprise D, that you can apply these steps to any build, and you can definitely do it. It just really comes down to how much planning and time you're willing to put into it. This is crazy. I've been working on this build since February, and we're already into July, and even where I'm at on the build, I'm still working on it. And I'm probably going to be working on it for the foreseeable future. I have a ton of interior to close in on the Enterprise D, and that's not even counting all the exterior that I'm going to have to do, all the detailing. So we'll be working on this thing for a while. So that's one of the reasons why I'm trying not to talk about Voyager too much also right now, because we may not be building it for a little bit. I'm pretty certain at this point that the Enterprise D is going to be the longest tutorial that I've ever done, but it's going to be well worth it. So we're looking pretty good right now. We finally got the back ends of the engines closed, and we got that blue iconic strip for the engines wrapping all the way around the back, like you see on all those next-gen era ships. Not gonna lie, that's something I wish that they would have had on the Cerritos even. I don't know. They could have maybe made them longer, pretty much like the next Enterprise D engines longer on the Cerritos, but I don't know. There's just something about the engines on the Enterprise D. I love how they look, especially when when they get closer to being finished, they'll look even better. But if you picture, what the finished Enterprise D engines actually look like, they look fantastic, and they're very iconic, and they have a very unique look to them. So now we're going to be adding some thickness here to these pylons. and I don't know what you call them. I guess like I don't know if they're wings or struts, but there's like these extra pieces that are on the pylons that kind of connect the pylons to the engines. And you can say I kind of messed with it a little bit there. I don't know if we get into it in this episode. It might actually be the next one, but you can see I just messed with it, and I'm getting ready to do that here shortly. Um, if I'm not mistaken, we're going to be doing a little bit more work to the engines, and then that'll wrap up today's episode. We've only got about 3 minutes left. I don't think we're going to be able to get a chance to get to those. But if you're noticing those are missing, those little pieces that are kind of the in between middle part to the engines themselves and the pylons, you wouldn't be mistaken. It's something we're definitely going to be doing. But we're going to be moving into the last phase of today's episode. Everything we just added with the blue on the engines. Don't want to do it on the gray, just the blue. We're going to be doing that on the top and bottom side, the half slabs. Because we only want this blue to show up from the sides. We don't want it to show from the top and bottom. This is also going to help to give the shape of the engines just a little bit more of a tubular look, kind of how they look on the show. Because this blue strip, it really doesn't stick out at all, and it's really only the sides that you can see it from. Alright, we're looking pretty good. A couple more rows to do on this side. And we're going to hop over to the right side here and do that. Yeah, see, that looks great. So let's hop over to the right side engine now, and we're going to do the same thing. This is just a testament of me being willing to try new things. You know, I didn't even initially think of this when I was first adding the blue strip, but then after I added them, I just thought, you know, this is something that just kind of stuck out with me, no pun intended, but I was like, wow, you know, like that looks good, but, you know, looking at the model Enterprise D, you don't see the blue really from the top and bottom. It's really only the sides. So I could have gone with the full block, but I think it looks better with the half slab. I think it looks a lot better with the half slab. Someone might end up asking me why I didn't go with the staircase instead of the half slab, and that's because the back end here with all these angle cuts, the stairs would not have looked good, especially when we're going to these single cuts right here. The stairs would have looked way out of place. But with the half slabs, it looks pretty good. And then if we went with the full slabs, I think it maybe would have stood out too much. It would have been just a little bit too much. This is kind of a case where less is more, and I think it looks fantastic. I mean, especially when you zoom out and take a look at it, I mean, that's the Enterprise D engines. Not really going to get much closer than that at this point. Really happy with how those things have come out so far. So we're in pretty good shape. I think we're going to stop it at that point for today. We've got one more episode this week, and I'll wrap us up for the week. But I just want to thank everybody again for tuning in today's episode. And if you did enjoy this content, please help me out. Hit that like and subscribe button, helping me support the channel. I can't thank you enough for that. And new subscribers, don't forget to hit notifications on so you get notified when those new videos drop. And speaking of new videos, you can always catch my new Minecraft videos dropping Tuesdays through Thursdays, typically at 7 p.m. Eastern. If you have any questions regarding today's episode, be sure to drop a comment below. or if there's any builds that you want to see me do, or any extra rooms or things you want me to see me add to this specific build, be sure to drop a comment while I'm working on it. Or if you just want to drop by to say, hey, definitely would love to hear from everybody. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for me. I just want to thank you all again for tuning in today's episode. I hope everybody has a happy and safe week, and I'll catch you on the next episode.